All right, guys, welcome back. Today is basically D-Day for the Banshee. We're going to be taking the motor and putting it in the frame. First things first, I'm going to take the plastics off. Some of them are just laying on there, and the back ones just need to be unbolted just to kind of open things up, make it easier to put the frame in, or the motor in, rather. So yesterday I pulled up the frame to clean it off. It was already pretty clean to begin with. It was not kept inside in a garage or a shed. It was actually under a covered awning with a cover on the quad. So it was somewhat kept out of the elements, but it was technically outside. Now, I actually did that for a reason, because a lot of you guys were giving me crap saying it's never going to hold up if you leave it outside, and just in general not going to hold up, because this quad was spray painted. It wasn't powder coated or anything like that. You guys know my theory on that. As long as you put in the time and do your prep work, it's going to hold up really well, and it did hold up really well. So really the worst of it is the wheels. They still look pretty good, but there's I could probably throw a coat of polish on them and make them look like new again. Probably wouldn't take long at all. And the axle has a little bit of wear on it. I'll show you guys that, but I'm actually surprised that the axle looks as good as it does. So the rest of it looks really good. The white on the swing arm held up really well. That was something that a lot of you guys were saying you were concerned with, because it's true, you know. White paint can get stained really easy, especially because I rode this thing in the coal mines, but it actually washed off really easy. I'm really surprised. The seat has a little bit of a discoloring. I think I can probably get that out. I'll see what kind of chemicals I can put on there to see if I can bring out that blue. But regardless, the quad still looks really good, and when we put this motor in there, it's going to look even better. Keep in mind, guys, it's not going to be a show quad. I know the motor looks brand new, and this Banshee looked brand new when I finished restoring it the first time, but we're not going to go restoring the frame again. I'm going to leave it in there as it is, and I'm sure it's going to look great. So first things first, let me get these plastics off, and I'm going to take off the 26mm carbs and throttle cable, because we're not going to be using those. All right, now this motor looks awesome the way it's sitting, but I got to take off the pipes, the carburetors, and the filters so we can throw it in the frame. I'm also going to go ahead and remove my stator cover because it's plastic, and I don't want it getting damaged or scratched or anything when I'm putting it in the motor. Plus, we're going to be putting on our DRW case saver, which needs to be put on behind the stator cover. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove it before we put the motor in. Now I'm down here at the frame, and you can see everything's still in pretty good shape down here. There is one area in here, it's most likely from gas dripping on there, because the drain lines run down the back. It looks like a little bit of the paint ate through. You can actually see the bonding primer that was the original coat. But I'm about to drop the motor in here. I have a little jack set up with a block of wood so that I can set the motor in here and adjust the height with the jack. And what I'm going to do is lay this old towel out in the motor and like on the pegs and stuff, because I don't want to scratch up the motor at all, and I don't want to scratch up the frame either. So it can be kind of cumbersome getting that motor to float in there correctly. And at least with the towel in there, there'll be a little bit of a buffer if I bump into any of the frame rails or anything. And then once I get everything lined up, I can pull the towel out. Now I can play around with the jack to adjust the height of the motor and get this back bolt to line up. First bolt we'll put in is this back motor mount. Before you guys start freaking out, yes, I put anti-seize on it, and we're not going to tighten down any of these just yet. And now that the motor is basically on a hinge in the back, I can lift up the motor, pull the towel out, and let it rest on the block of wood. Now I can drop the motor down and line up our front motor mounts. Now I'll tighten these two big motor mounts down to 32 foot-pounds. And these smaller bolts go to 22. Now we're going to put on these lower motor mounts. They can be a little bit annoying to put on. And I'm going to put a little bit of blue Loctite on the front portion of these mounts because when I was taking them apart, they were a little loose. Now these lower mounts get tightened to 18 foot-pounds, and I'm going to leave those front mounts snugged up because I can't fit my torque wrench in there. Alright, so our motor went in there nice and easy. So now what I'm going to do is hook up our clutch cable, get that all set up, and I have my carburetors all set, ready to go. I have 150 main jets and 55 pilot jets in there just as a start, and I'm running CEL needles on the 4th clip position, which is more on the richer side. So you can see I got my carbs set right here. We're going to be running the genuine key in 35 millimeters for the first run out. We will be running the 34 millimeter replica carbs. We're going to do a comparison on the dyno and see just how much the performance differs. But for now, we're going to run the key-ins because eventually when this build is done, these are the ones that I'm going to be keeping on there. Now these are the air strikers. You can see they got the fins in here and these two extra ports, these vents up top. That's supposed to help with bogging after a jump. I'm not 100% sure how those work, but these are supposed to be some great carburetors. And as you can see, I got the green lines on this carb and the blue lines on this carb. I didn't do it that way because I ran out of a certain color or anything. I did that because it's kind of like the red side, or the blue side and the green side. So this will be the blue side with the blue clutch cover, and then this will be the green side because we got the green Yamaha logo. So that was my thinking with that. I think that should look pretty cool. And then of course we have the Terry cable already hooked up. You can see my jets and my needles sitting out. I already have these things set up. So I'm going to pop them in, I'll sync them up, and yeah, but before I do that, I do want to throw on my clutch cable, and then we'll get to moving on. Not too bad. Alright, got my carbs in there. All my vent and drain lines are running down the bottom. Green versus blue. So now I'm going to run this throttle cable right up to my thumb throttle, and then I'll sync these carbs up and we'll move on. Alright, so our carbs are all synced up. Throttle's all set up. Got all stainless steel up here now. Looks really nice. So I'm going to go ahead and start putting things on. We'll hook up all our radiator hoses, spark plug wires, all the easy stuff like that, our wire harness. Just going to start throwing things together so we can get these pipes on and get an idea what it's going to look like. Alright, let's see if we can get these pipes on here nice. This could be challenging. These SLP pipes are deceivingly big. Now that I have those pipes installed and I can see how everything sits, I'm going to install our temperature gauge from DBC Racing. This is a simple inline temperature gauge. I know it's not the best way to monitor the temperature, but it's better than not having a temperature gauge at all, and it's extremely easy to install. All you need to do is cut out a section of your radiator hose and clamp the temperature gauge right in. Alright, so we got our exhaust on there, and we're getting to the point where we're going to be putting our air filter setup on and actually be able to start this thing up. I'm getting really excited. But we ran into a problem here. With this setup that we have, I can't even get these pod filters on here. It's you can see it's rubbing up over here. I can't get this on. I mean, I could probably force this on and make it work. Maybe if I spun it so that it's tilted to one side and then have this one tilted a little bit to the side. But that's kind of, I don't really like that. And it's just not the way I want to run it. And I still have this CFM airbox. Now, the only reason that I don't really want to run this is because apparently, because of these long tubes, it can kind of be a little restrictive. I'm not sure exactly what happens, but it doesn't have the most free-flowing, design. Now, for the stock setup that I had, this worked perfectly fine, and I made perfectly good power. I didn't even notice a difference. But the guys at Driveline were telling me that this might be a little restrictive when I run it with the 4 mil setup because I'm going to need a lot more airflow. Now, they said they've actually run 4 mils with this exact airbox, and they've had issues with jetting. So what I was thinking, because this will still fit, I'll show you. You can see this would fit in there. And what I'd have to do is cut down these tubes just a little bit, because the carbs are actually sitting further back than they were in the stock position. So the tubes would be shortened up, which I'm happy that they'd be shortened up. And then I have these larger boots so that I can use this airbox. So, I mean, maybe if I cut down these tubes just a little bit, I won't have as big of a problem with the airflow. I don't know. So I'm thinking about cutting them down just to run it, and we'll see what kind of power it makes. And then we'll see if I can fit this in here. Really what I wanted to do is cut the tubes down to like here and put this whole airbox up here. Then we wouldn't even have the tubes, and I think it would run a lot better. But the problem is, you can see it hits between the pipes. Before I put the pipes on, I was mocking it up and I could fit it in there. But, the pipes run on the inside. So if I was running out-of-frame pipes, I could do it. But, unfortunately, the pipes they run inside here, and it's just not going to fit. And it's a shame, because I have some really good ideas in my head of how I could design an airbox that would be perfect for this. Unfortunately, I'm not the best fabricator when it comes to aluminum. I could probably make it out of steel, but that's like a whole nother project, and I want to get this Banshee running. So the airbox project might be something I do down the line. Hell, I might even design an airbox and then sell, a design or something, because I have a really good idea in my head of how this could be really nice, and it would just make it a lot easier to run an airbox. So I guess for now, I'm going to cut this down. I'll have to measure exactly how much I can take off. I want to take off as much as I possibly can, and then I might even trim portions of this airbox off or drill holes up here so that we can get a little bit more airflow into our filters. All right, so I have everything on there. It's kind of ugly, and I do plan to run the airbox, but for the first start, this is going to work. There's barely a hairline in between these filters and the pipes, but for what we're doing right now, it's going to be just fine until we get that airbox on there. I want to make sure that that's all good to go before I, go just throwing it on there. I'm just too excited to do that work right now before starting it. I have this cheap fuel line on here. I got to throw the other one on this other carb just to get the job done, like I said, with that cheap fuel line and these filters. And I did put our pingle valve on, or it's actually a knockoff pingle valve from Vito's Performance. And I didn't realize it, but I did have to drill out the hole a little bit. I used a Dremel and a drill just to get that to fit on there. All right, so we're close, guys. I'm gonna put a little bit of trans fluid in this thing, a little bit of gas. We'll see if it starts. So we actually ran into a little bit of a problem here. After I put that antifreeze in, I was taking pictures and doing the slow-mo frames and everything, and I noticed a super low drip, very, very slow, coming off the bottom of the frame, and it turned out it was coming from the weep holes on the side of the cylinder, which is something that's no problem, to fix. But literally, let me show you, the weep holes couldn't have been in a more inconvenient spot. If you can see them back there. You cannot get an Allen wrench under there. It hits the pipe. It was impossible to get to. I had to take the exhaust system off again to get to the weep holes. You can see that one back there. And the cylinders were a little bit rough behind there, so I sanded them down, and I had to put some copper washers on there, tighten them back up, and I put the exhaust system back on. But now there are no leaks. We're good to go. Got my gas, my Snuggles gas can. If you guys know what I'm talking about.
Oh God, what is this?
I'm telling you, Jay, you gotta stop with that normal gas can bullshit.
This is Snuggle.
Snuggles,
this is. Where'd you get this from? Your mom? Did you steal this from your mom?
Crack the back like that. Look at this, dude. No leaks or nothing.
Jesus.
Is that easy or what?
No wonder when you ride, it smells for like something Snuggle coming out the back of that exhaust pipe.
Had a hole in it when I went to go fill up the premium fuel, and there was gas leaking all over the ground and stuff. And I had to like balance it and make it come back so that I could hold the gas. It was just a nightmare. But finally I came back here, dumped it in here. I got it mixed up with my Beanol. It's about 38 to 1 is what I'm going to run for this first tank. Let's get some gas in this thing and see if it fires. I hate those stupid gas cans. I miss my Snuggles can. Alright, so what I'm going to do is kick it over a few times nice and slow with the kill on, just to get the oil moving around inside the engine, and then I'll give it a couple good kicks, and we'll see if it runs. These Instagram pages suck. God, I wish there was an Instagram page with badass ATV videos. Here, try this. Who are you? I'll take your phone, though. Banshee YFZ Raptor. I like those quads. This Instagram page is awesome.
Watching Banshee YFC Raptor videos does not guarantee loss of depression. Instant excitement is based on a small case study of 10 participants. Results are likely to vary. Instagram scrolling while walking may result in being hit by a car, bumping into a pedestrian, causing a blow to the face, or possible stab wounds. All pictures and videos belong to Banshee YFC Raptor.
Alright, so it fired right up. The idle screws are all the way down. They need to be adjusted so that it'll idle. So I'm going to turn them up right now, and then we'll see if we can get her idling. Alright guys, so I'm going to let the Banshee finish out this heat cycle. I hope you guys can hear me with the Banshee running in the background. I have the fan set up on it so that it doesn't overheat. I just checked our temperature gauge. We're a little over 100 degrees, so I can keep an eye on that. But as it looks right now, I don't see any leaks or anything. It started up on the third or fourth kick, I guess, and I think if I had the idle screws adjusted properly, it probably would have started on the first kick, so I'm pretty happy about that. I had it idle in for a little bit, and then it died out when it was warming up, and I turned up the idle screws just a little bit, and it seems to be idling just fine right now. So what we're going to be doing next is throwing the plastics on, and we're going to be dialing these things in, and I'm actually going to be meeting up with John from Stupid Fast, and we're going to be doing plug chops up in his area. He's got a nice straightaway section where we can run these things down, get them up at the speed, and then cut off the power and do our plug chops. So it should be pretty cool to compare the 421 with the 472. I don't know if we're going to be doing any racing because, you know, they're fresh quads. I don't know if we want to do anything like that right off the bat. Maybe we'll be playing around a little bit. I'm not really sure yet. But we're going to be doing that, and then we're probably going to be taking them to a dyno, and we're going to get to see just how much power these things are making. Once again, we can compare the 472 to the 421 and see how much of a big of a difference it is. Okay, guys, so I'm going to wrap it up while this thing's finishing up the heat cycle. As always, remember to check me out on Instagram. It's Sabo350. And also check out Stupid Fast. He's got a lot of cool stuff going on. You can watch his build. You'll see we're neck and neck right now finishing up these builds. So until the next video, guys, enjoy the rest of your week, and I will see you in the next one. Beano!